Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today for another video on the nation of Galarian. Today, after a month of rebellion, we look at a nation of lawlessness. Glory to those of the open sea, whether they stand for good or for ill. Let's look towards the Shackles, maybe, the land of the free captains. Well, seat of the free captains. You know what I mean. The Shackles are an island chain which is part of the Arcadian Ocean, known as the Fever Sea. These islands were once part of the Cyclopean nation of Garund before it was sunk. You can see that video for more information on that. While small tribes live on these islands, their nature left many of them deserted, except for, of course, the occasional monster. But as Avastanian and sailors spread, the islands became home to small amounts of piracy and black market trading. Nothing too spectacular at that time. That is, until the Eye of Abendego came and destroyed various trade routes in the area, as well as flooding large swaths of the mainland, but we do not care about the Saltlands today. The pirates might have fallen apart at this point, but instead they came to an accord. They created a pirate council, formed the islands into a loose confederacy, and allowed the pirates who declared themselves the free captains to gain dominance over the sea. The fact that the nation was funded through protection money from Sargava also did not hurt a bit. The nation is ruled, well, that itself is probably an inaccurate statement. The closest thing to stability in the Shackles is the Pirate Council, made up of the strongest of the free captains, referred to as pirate lords, usually because they have cities as their own. And the actual head is the pirate named the Hurricane King, a position which is technically democratically elected, but to have pirates voting you in, you have to be the scariest and most legendary pirate alive at the time. Until recently, the position was held by Kendok Bonefist. But it is not exactly a position which sticks for long, and a mutiny brought Tessa Fairwind to the position a few years back. So now is time for a deep dive. Well, almost. It is actually time for our first side tangent, where we do a deep dive into... I ruined that joke. Anyway, today, since we are talking about a nation mostly water, and we'll mention various creatures who live here besides humans, let's do a quick rundown of the aquatic species found within the inner sea region. First, we mentioned them a few times, but we have aquatic elves, those elves who adapt to the sea. They're most often found in northern Arcadian Ocean, but sometimes make their way south to the Fever Sea. Likewise, the Gilmenses Ozzenkedi are ones that we've heard a lot about in 2e, so do not need to hear more about them today. Ones which were playable in 1e, but are not yet in 2e, we start off with Sicilias. They are people with the lower bodies of squids. They are known to be polite and kind of humans, and love decorating their bodies in tattoos, especially those which are land-drawn. Locathas are actually fish people, looking and smelling like two-legged, two-armed fish. They get along well with various sea creatures and are known for trading and fairness. Merfolk are the classic half-fish, though they hate land dwellers and are incredibly secretive. That said, their songs are still the stuff of legends. And Tritons are blue-skinned humanoids originally from the plane of water, but adapted to the material plane long ago. They despise cruelty and corruption, and train fervently to fight against such. As for dangers, Anderos are shark people, Grindelows are aquatic goblins, and Sahagins are cruel creatures who eat all others, except their favorite, the shark. The Shackles is a series of islands, so most of this is going to be geography based. first off the mainlands. The part of the Shackles is directly connected to Garund, which includes the capital of Port Peril. This is where the Pirate Council meets, and the traditional home of the Hurricane King. The town is an actually decent trade hub for online merchants, and it stands as a major city in its own right. When Bonefist was alive, he used the fortress of Luke Hold to keep himself safe. No word on Fairwind that I know of. There are two other mainland ports, Oyster Cay, which is in a war between two pirate lords / ex-lovers looking to gain complete control of the town, and Colvos Giblet, named after the steel cage skeleton of its namesake, and its former first mate opens the town to those who wish to lie low. Other towns include Neruma, the center of the country's land trade route, and Paulay Point, a nice town, which also collects and sells skeletal from ships they trick into wrecking. Now let us continue on with the main islands as they grow farther from the mainland, starting with Devil's Arches in the north. This is one of the first islands discovered by the Chelish, its name coming from its being covered in old Gargon ruins, including the city of Bleeding Stones, the largest ruins and one no expedition has returned from. The main port, however, is Hell Harbor. This is the first harbor one usually finds when coming south, and is currently ruled by a former Chelish admiral, Eroxux Edemion, who accidentally became enemies of House Thurn and took over the city for his own paranoid safety. What once was a lawless port now stands as a many Cheliax, but one where outsiders, especially Chelaxians, could easily find themselves imprisoned while the captain spends much of his time in the inland fortress of Tivos Devos. The other main port is Medjubal, ruled by the Downer Longbeard, but the island also contains the jungle giant city of Peshka Naru. Also to the north lies Tempest Cay. This island sits directly in the path of various storms created by the Eye of Abendego. For those traveling north, it is going to be a last stop before heading past the Eye, and therefore has many large towns despite the constant winds and rain. This island is especially popular for those of orphan descent, for Tangus, and for worshippers of Gazra. In fact, the pirate lord of the island is a druid of Gaza, the enigmatic Master of Gales, who spends most of his time in a small cave a mile north of Drenchport than in the capital itself. That said, the city of Bloody Cutthroats is also known as home for the Cult of the Eye, those who believe the Eye of Abendego is actually a fledgling deity, and worship it in hopes of its reaching its full form soon. Their towns include the fishing village of Downpour, and the kelp farmers of Drowning Rock. The town of Maiden's Pool, built by Fleet Captain Vladismir Roch of Medigalti, was also on its way of being a major port, until a raid by Locathas left the construction ruins and the noble penniless. Next up, we have the largest single island of Mutaku Isle. The island has 4 thriving ports along with its untouched wilderness. The capital is Krent, the second largest port in all of the Shackles, one of the finest deepwater ports, and home to many inns and taverns, as well as industry and temples. The most famous being Calistria's House of Stolen Kisses, of course. It was also the home port / still is the home port of Tess Fairwind. Not 100% sure how the Hurricane King works, whether she took his throne or she made her own throne here. Anyway, as for the other ports, Rapier Bay is for those who would like to draw less attention to themselves, and is known for its smithies. and is ruled by Faerwin's second, Maxivale Janus. Bogsbridge was made by Falgud Bowles, and who was tricked by his friends into thinking that Smaller desired for him to build a city in the middle of the swamp. It actually paid off, as he discovered rare snails which are used to make purple dye, and made a fortune. The smaller city, Lillywhite, is ruled jointly by Captain Delamona Bury and Little Shegud as a haven for worshippers of Kid and Caitlin. But of course, the island is not only known for its ports, but for the untold amount of unexplored wilderness further inland. Just north of Mutaku is Bag Island. This is an island populated by various halflings who escaped slavery and started a civilization on their own. It started when Jollish Raffles began a mutiny for the rowers on a warship. They took to the island, which till then had been a small pirate cove, and made it their own island. They then proceeded to raid slave ship after slave ship until they had liberated thousands, most of them, of course, halflings. Currently, there is an ongoing war between Raffles and the nearby slave haven of Rampur Isle. The capital is Slip Cove, a former fishing village, now a halfling haven. To dock here, one needs to agree to the beg mandates, a law enforced by the loyalty of the ex-slaves who live there. Rumbutter is further south, and is home to a thriving business of honey and mead. And then there's Beachcomber, place of half-orcs as well as halflings, of shady dealings, and an almost public temple of Norgabur. And finally, much further out to sea than the rest of the main islands, we have Shark Island. This is the second largest island, and has much deep water to make ports for pirates to stake their claims. But everything changed when the Sargon attacked. They turned what was a pirate's best dream into the worst shark-infested nightmares. The capital of Olo still stands, but as the slums ruled by pirate lord Aramar Sornash and his crew of werewolves. The second largest city is Raketooth, currently ruled by Maul Breakwater and Venegal Palpath, who specialized in stealing luxury goods and keeping the Sargons at bay with sacrifices. Two other cities have cropped up since the flood of Sargons began. The first, Blackbird Cay, port with a hidden inlet ruled by Captain Simeon Devane, who humorously runs the city. The second, Biolock, is a settlement that changes its leader rapidly, and is a place where betrayal is law. Of course, though only 6 islands are the most powerful, there are thousands of islands making up the chain. Let's take a quick look at all of them. Well, not all of them, but the ones we have information on. Dividing them by region, first let's look at those which are to the north, around Devil's Arches and Tempest Cay. To the north of Devil's Arches is the actual northernmost island, known as Yoha's Graveyard, named after Pathfinder Branch Yoha, who led an expedition into the ruins devoted to a Galgar deity known as the Drink of Human Hopes. Yaha's Graveyard. Rybus Rock is named after the arcane spellcaster who destroyed this island, which is now just a mining colony. Widowmaker Island is home to gambling and blood sports, and almost everything ends with the exchange of coins. Hesmenes Island is home to the playthings of a Rasukla sorceress who does not let her toys leave their chest. Finally, halfway between Devil's Arches and Rutaku Island is 3 islands known as Dark's Fang, Dark's Horn, and Dark's Tooth. Islands ruled by the red dragon Oshog, the Annihilation, cleric of the Hawk. Next, let's take a quick look at the islands between the mainlands and Rutaku Island. Starting south to north, we have Firegrass Island, an island settled by pirates who truly care nothing for rules. They gave a middle finger to the Pirate Council and raided Salgava while the pact was still in effect. No idea what they are currently doing. Next is Magange Cove, home to various Mahogany pirates of Vanuatu descent. This is also a main hub of the spiritualistic practice known as Juju. Shenshu Bay is home to many Tians who have found their way to the Shackles. It is ruled by an elected council known as the Wise Council of Three. Finally, one more thrown in, Talis Isle, which lies directly south of Rutaku Island. The current island was established by a minor Talon noble who went pirate, but still tries presenting himself as a lord. Which brings us to a second side tangent. More on the back end of this time because so many opportunities on the small island. We mentioned Juju, so let's talk about it a bit. Juju is using shamanistic practices to commune with spirits known as Rendo, which are in a place between God and spirit similar to Kami in Tianxi. Communication is typically done through a Juju oracle called a Wendifa, and through the use of complex rituals to both call and appease the window. Since it is not mentioned in Mahogany Expanse, it was likely put on the back burner like other culturally sensitive topics. But there are similar real-life equivalents with faiths like Voodoo and its cousins. So it can be an interesting addition if done well and with respect. But, talking to such spirits will need to be limited to your table. And now our third side tangent. We try to not have 2 of these in a row, but this is my one chance to talk about the Tian without having to go to Dragon Empire. Tian are like the Mahogany. Multiple people from Tian who are just grouped into one by the Avastanians. They tend to have dark hair, but skin color, eye colors, clothes, and such are connected to the individual cultures. There are 7 ethnicities which, going through one by one, start with the Tian Shu, the most populous, coming from several nations, who believe everyone has a proper place. Tian Min are from the nation of Minkai, and believe in strict rules of etiquette and hygiene. The Tian Lost are ferocious equestrian conquerors from the nation of Hangul. The Tian Sings are from the various wandering islands of Minata, and are diverse groups of fisherfolk, pirates, monks, and various other things. Again, thousands of islands. Tian Huangs are patient diplomats from the nation of Hwangat. The Tongs are one of the most peaceful people, and work as scholars in the nation of the Tongma. Finally, Tian Dons claim they possess the blood of dragons, who serve a dragon monarch in the nation of Baho. While all different, they generally place high regard on family and genealogy, follow warrior practices like Ichimeo, and follow spiritual practices like Sandy Posti. For anything else, well, hopefully one day I will have more information on individual countries so I can speak more on all this. But this is all for our eastern neighbors for today. And also the last of our main human ethnicities, if I am counting right. I will double check later. Next, let's go with those islands which sit between Wotaku Island and Bag Island to the east, and Shark Island to the west. From south to north, Wiggs Madu's Reach, which is home to a lich who, after having her lair destroyed multiple times, has taken to the sea as just no pirate, with these dead lands as her birth. Next, directly between Wotaku and Shark, sits the smallest stone, a holy site completely devoted to the deity of piracy herself. Capri-Dua are home to ocean elves, aka typical elves who have taken to sailing and the seas and made their conclave here. North Island was home to feared pirate and smuggler Nod's Tarboro, and today still serves as a direct entrance to the Docklands. The Smoker is the largest volcano in the region, and prophets gather here for isolation and for access to the volcanic powers. Finally, just north of Bag Island sits Rampur Isles, a center of slave trade controlled by a Rakshasa. Which brings us to our final side tangent, the monstrous Rakshasa. Rakshasa on our side of the screen are a subset of Asura in Dharmic mythologies. You know, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jain, you know the ones. They're there to differentiate them from their brothers in classical mythology, just the description mostly used with certain enemies of the hero Rama, like Ravana himself. In D&D and Pathfinder in turn, Rakshasa were changed into beings with the heads of animals and with their hands attached backwards. Pathfinder specifically, they feel the need to rule over others, but will inevitably bring corruption and ruin to any people they find themselves in control of. They are also one of the fiends who make their homes on the material planes as opposed to being outsiders. And finally, we end our tour of the Shackles with the islands which are just past Shark Island. Well, south of it. Still have some southern islands. The first of which is Ushinawa Island. We had Tian earlier, but this is another Tian Island, though with Senchu, well, Senchu is mainly for immigrants. These are for those who hold the samurai spirit, no matter where on the map they are. Pengali Atoll was once home to a ruthless pirate named Koldok, till his savagery led to his first mate slitting his throat. They still sail his ship, and stories say he is not exactly happy about that. Just past Shark Island is Raptor Island, a prison colony infested with dinosaurs. And just past that is the Cannibal Islands, the home of the Koru and the Blood Queen. I also talked about them in my Gold Gone video. Finally, the Glengarny Chain, 13 desert islands which are tied to legend of Kohol, Fate's captain, and whose request for a certain task to be completed in exchange for fate to be changed. And that's today's video. But with Shackles complete, there is one deity I could not talk about the nation of pirates without mentioning. You know the one. So next week's video, we again keep away from the main 20 to instead deal with a deity whose importance has yet to be realized. See you then.